past the clouds, over the dark night. She reached up to the sky of stars and caught the red-hot light of the North Star. Opened the earth, walking with blood-soaked feet. She challenged the whip, the gun, the knife. She challenged the fire, pulled from the bodies of slaves, made into laws, prisons, and courts. Screaming white-hot flames and agony, she challenged millions of headhunters, dragging and ripping apart impossible tender moments of time, shipping vessels of history, ancient history, destroying the fabric, the godlike claw of destiny of a people with a gun, a knife, a cannon, building the hideous wall of blood called slavery.
Well, as always, welcome back. Thanks for joining me today. As I'm sure most of you all know, the Zionist state of Israel and Hamas have signed their first phase of the Gaza ceasefire deal that is expected to release hostages. The initial deal was signed today, and it's going to halt fighting in Gaza and see Hamas release all remaining hostages in exchange for Israel's release of Palestinian prisoners. It remains to be formalized by a vote of the Israeli Knesset before a final version can come into force. So what does this mean in the immediate term, but from my perspective, more importantly, what does it mean for the long term? Let's connect some dots and find out.
Connecting the Dots with Dr. Wilmer Leon, where the analysis of politics, culture, and history converge.
Welcome to the Connecting the Dots podcast with Dr. Wilmer Leon, and I am Wilmer Leon. With each show, my guests and I provide insight and analysis into current events and the broader historical context in which most of these events take place. I'm going to forego the normal quick review of headlines, and let's get right to it. On today's episode, the issue before us is the announcement of this deal prompted celebrations and a cautious sense of optimism among Israelis and Palestinians. But for me, what is this optimism based on? Who in this deal can the Palestinians trust? And what is their recourse if not when the U.S. and Israelis renege? My guest is a liberation theologian, educator, and political activist. He's chairperson of Organization for the Victory of the People based in Guyana. He's a member of the Governing Council of the Global Pan-African Movement and an executive member of the Caribbean Pan-African Network, CPAN. Gerald Perreira, as always, welcome back.
Yeah, thank you, my brother.
Thank you so much for coming back and joining me. So when you heard the news today, and I know you've seen the footage, let's just start with your thoughts.
Well, first of all, I want to see an end to the genocide.
Mm-hmm.
The latest, the current official toll is that 64,718 Palestinians killed in Gaza, 106 over roughly about 164,000 are injured since the start of this genocide, October the 7th. And not to mention that, they're saying that the number is much greater than this. Many thousands more are feared dead, buried under the rubble. Also, those who have died due to other illnesses like cancer and because of the lack of medication, and not to mention the hundreds dying from forced starvation. And some Palestinian journalists, commentators, and academics are putting the dead, at far more than what we are hearing. As I said, all progressive, all peace-loving people would like to see an end to this. And we hope that this peace don't turn out to be a peace of the graveyard, because both Trump and Netanyahu, both the Trump administration and Netanyahu's regime, are deceivers. They cannot be trusted. I listened carefully to what Hamas had to say, and the Western media shaping this thing as some sort of agreement between Trump and Netanyahu on one hand and Hamas. No, but Hamas consulted with other groups as part of what they refer to as a national responsibility. And there are other organizations that signed on to it. So it's not Hamas alone. Palestinian Islamic Jihad is standing with Hamas. That's the second largest armed liberation movement. And the other organizations like the Popular Resistance Committees, the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, the Democratic Front for the Liberation of Palestine, and two other groups, 6 of them, have all agreed. So Hamas it's not just Hamas, the others have agreed on releasing the hostages. But the question is, if the resistance do release the hostages, are there any guarantee that Israel, that Netanyahu would not start bombing again? Because that's the only leverage that they have so far, the Palestinians have. So we don't know if they hand over the hostages, what is really going to happen. I do not trust Trump, but I think what is happening with Trump, maybe he wants an end to it. I'm not sure. Maybe, because there's a lot of pressure coming from their Arab allies, their Arab surrogates, like in Qatar, the UAE, even Jordan. I listened to one Arab official said that after the conflict, the war between Israel and Iran, another war like that, they cannot sustain it. It will be very costly to the region. So Trump allies are really worried, and Trump is trying to do a balancing act. I think, here's the Trump, the deceiver, the man who, while the Palestinians were getting ready for the talks in Doha, he knew that Israel was going to bomb Qatar, And that was just to tell the Qataris, well, you know, we were going to warn you and all of that. If Qatar, well, the Qataris, I don't know whether they fell for that or what. But they are worried because they cannot, this war or next war, and I think Iran did something which is very important. I think the Iranians were prepared in some way for that attack on them by Israel. And I know many people, some military strategists have argued this, that Iran did not use some of the sophisticated weaponry they have. Because Iran is preparing for another showdown. And these Arab misleaders are begging Trump. So I don't know all this euphoria, the celebration and all of that. It might be a celebration for the Arab leaders. I'm not sure if the Arab streets are falling for it.
A problem that I am having with this so-called analysis from the West is they're framing it, for the most part, in the context of October 7th, 2023.
Yeah.
As though that's the beginning of the conflict.
Yeah.
Two things. And in fact, I incorporated this into my lecture with my students today. The power to define is the power to control.
Correct.
So, firstly, calling this a war. It's not a war.
It's not.
These are, and I was saying to my kids today, they frame it in the context of a war so that they can discuss this as though it's a conflict between equals.
That's right.
This is a resistance to oppression.
Yeah.
The second point is, by starting the analysis from October 7, 2023, ignores the Nakba.
That's right.
So if you ignore the Nakba, then how can you make any progress? Because you're not getting to the root cause of the problem.
That's right. No, you're absolutely right. That's what the Western media is doing. Like this thing started 2 years, October the 7th. And so they ignore the entire history, the Nakba, the catastrophe, the forced displacement of Palestinians from their lands and so on.
This thing has been going on longer than I've been
alive. For very long time. I mean, I remember when I was in high school, we were supporting the Palestinian, posters of the Palestinian resistance. This thing has been going along for a long time. But you know, brother, that is so. And it's amazing how many have somehow fall for that. You know, they just ignore decades of what was going on. And I can recall some of, in the early days, they had what was called the Arab nationalist movement, of which Yasser Arafat was part of.
Yes.
And then you had different organizations that emerged out of that, like the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine and so. And the Palestinian resistance, there were two main tendencies. And one tendency headed by the nationalists, like Arafat, they were receiving the support. They believed that they could challenge the apartheid state of Israel with the backing of the Arab bourgeois regimes. Okay, that the Popular Front, the Marxist-oriented front, the Marxist-oriented groups like the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine and others, they said we have to wage a protracted war against the Israeli apartheid state, but we also have to challenge what they refer to as the Arab bourgeois regimes. And they have turned out to be, they're correct in the analysis they made many years ago. People like Laila Khalid, who is a member of the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine. Because this tendency was saying that while we are fighting the Zionists, the Arab regimes, these bourgeois Arab regimes, were aiding and abetting the Zionists. So they had to somehow bring about the downfall of those regimes. And they solicited the support of the Arab nationalist regimes like Syria, Iraq, and those countries that, including Libya, that supported the resistance. And I can recall many in what was known as the rejectionist front that rejected the Oslo Accords and the Dayton Accords and so on. They were saying that Israel was never committed to a two-state solution.
Mm-hmm.
That they were just dragging on, deceiving the world, deceiving the Palestinians, the Arab world, and Arafat. They said that. And it came out. If you look at it, you listen to some of the hardliners, as I pointed out, they're saying exactly what the soft face of Zionism was not openly saying. They saw, for them, the Palestinian people should either go to Jordan or to Egypt or some other Arab land, and that they can take control of Gaza. This is all part of the greater plan, the greater Israel expansion plan, to take over not just Gaza and the entire Palestinian lands, but parts of Egypt, Jordan, and Syria. Remember the Golan Heights. They took the Golan Heights from Syria and occupied it. And they used these bogus jihadists to remove the Assad regime. And now the Israelis have extended their presence in Syria.
Mm-hmm.
So if with this peace talks, that we're talking about peace, as you said, what is the future? And if Israel pull back, is Israel going to pull right back into so-called Israeli territory? How much are they going to pull back? And this talk about part of this peace plan and the future, they want a future for the Palestinians without Hamas. And by extension, all the groups that participated in Operation Al-Aqsa Flood. They want to, Hamas said, look, we will accept some sort of system governance with Palestinian technocrats, but foreigners that constitute this international peace board, we will not accept it. They want to impose a mechanism that governs Palestinian territory that are made up of people who, like Tony Blair, a war criminal, and the Palestinians are not going to accept that. That is open, that is downright colonialism. We got the settler colonialism, this is downright colonialism. So this international peace board with Trump and Tony Blair and others, it's just preposterous. It's ridiculous. And the Palestinians, the resistance movement, the resistance will not accept it. They're not going to accept it. And Hamas is not going to lay down their weapons. To do that is to commit suicide. Our history has shown us that you cannot trust. You cannot trust the Anglo-Saxon peoples and the Zionists. They cannot be trusted.
In fact, what's the name of the? You mentioned a woman theologian
Yes.
who talked about the three Ds.
Yeah, the three Ds. Yeah.
What was her name again?
Rosemary Radford Reuter.
Thank you.
Yeah, she said the 3 Ds: deception, domination, destruction, and domination.
Rosemary Radford Royster.
Yeah.
Destruction,
deception, destruction, and then domination.
You know, in listening to this discussion about, because I've got the national news on here, and MSNBC is talking about they're not talking about the ceasefire.
Yeah.
You're talking about the ceasefire framework that they're working through a framework. And what this language brought back to my mind was the Minsk Accords. And if I'm trying to connect dots that shouldn't be connected, then please.
No, you're going right. You're right. Yes, you're right.
But before the Russian military intervention in Ukraine, the Minsk agreements had been negotiated and signed.
That's right.
And Putin meets with Biden in Geneva about 6 months before Putin goes into Ukraine, and Putin says to Biden a number of times, Joe, all you got to do is implement Minsk. We've already negotiated this.
Yeah.
The deal's already done.
Yeah.
Why are we here?
Yeah.
Then Angela Merkel comes out, then the Chancellor of Germany, and says, oh, we were lying about that the whole damn time.
Yes. Correct.
We never intended the Minsk agreements to be implemented. We were just buying time to rearm and retrain Ukraine so that we could go in stronger back into Russia.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry for taking so long to set this up, but I think
it's important. It's important, brother. You're right.
This only makes sense from the Israeli side if you believe that Israel was winning. But if you have any indication that they were getting their hind parts thumped.
That's right.
Iran was kicking their ass.
That's right.
Yemen was kicking their ass. And Hamas was taking it to them.
Yeah.
They need time to regroup.
Well said.
Without if the United States doesn't put boots on the ground, even the U.S. has run out of missiles.
Yeah.
We don't have the stockpile we need to defend ourselves because we blew all that crap up in Ukraine.
In the Ukraine, that's right.
So is it possible, if not plausible, that another angle on this is Israel got its ass kicked? The IDF is not nearly as formidable as we were led to believe, and that this is Israel's time out to rearm.
Yeah, I agree with you, but I guess before I get there, absolutely, 100%.
Okay.
There's another factor here that's important. You're seeing this global resistance.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
This global move, solidarity with Palestine. And it's really impacting on governments in Europe and all across the world. You see what is going on in the UK, France, and all of that.
Yes.
So there's tremendous pressure on Western governments. That's one. But you are right. What Israel is very good at doing is concealing their casualties. Now, Iran did tremendous damage to Israel.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, after 2 years, you said your objective was to destroy Hamas, and you've not been able to do that. Hamas is intact, and Hamas is destroying Israeli armored vehicles, and their snipers are taking out Israeli IDF soldiers. The Yemenis, the Ansarullah forces hit airports and strategic sites in Israel, as well as the damage that U.S. aircraft carrier. I think it's now decommissioned. So Trump came out and saying, oh, we destroyed them. And so, no. They are still firing missiles, and they're strong. Ansarullah is very strong. And I agree with you. I think Israel needs this breathing space. I think they do need the breathing space. There are reports that a number of Israeli soldiers have committed suicide, and there is levels of desertion. This is being concealed. This is being hidden from the media, and of course, the Western corporate media is part of this. The collaboration with the Israelis, collaborating with them to hide the casualties that Israel has suffered.
Hiding the casualties that Israel has suffered.
Yeah.
Willie Hicks says, oppress a people for decades and then play the victim when they come back at you. That's one of the things in terms of this is not a war.
It 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 is a resistance.
It is a resistance. And brother, one of the things that we're faced with is, I just want to add this, because I saw Tucker Carlson spoke, and he went after this narrative about Israel, and less than an hour after, there were some million views and all of that. Because you can see too, and I think maybe Trump is taking notice of it, or his advisors are telling him, I'm not sure. But the MAGA movement is split.
Yes.
Split. Because there is the two main tendencies in that. You have there is the evangelical, right-wing evangelical mega churches with false preachers like John Hagee.
Mm-hmm.
On one hand, and then you have the Christian identity movement on another hand. The difference
who's leading that? Who's leading?
Well, let me get to the first one.
Okay.
The right-wing Christian evangelical movement believes that Israel is God's chosen, the people that constitute Israel, these Jews, these so-called Jews, are the chosen people of God and all of that. And they have a right to the land and to destroy the Palestinians. That is unbiblical reading of the scripture. It ignores it. Those people do not understand the archaeology, the history of that area.
Right.
That is one.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Judeo-Christian itself is a contradiction. That's another thing. We won't get into. People like you talk about Judeo-Christian civilization. Western civilization has never been Christian or Judeo-Christian.
Mm-hmm.
That's false. That's for another discussion.
Mm-hmm.
Then there is the Christian identity movement that believe that white people are special, and they are very so-called anti-Semitic. They believe that they preach that the Jews crucified Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
And they believe that, for example, America was promised to the white people who came in and colonized the country and civilized the nation, as they would say. But the Christian identity movement is very racist, and there are different tendencies. Like the Ku Klux Klan is part of the Christian identity movement. Aryan nations and all of these groups. They're very they're anti-Zionists. They're anti-Zionists, right? They're anti-Zionists, but they also place a lot of emphasis. They celebrate Adolf Hitler, and they publish a lot of their Western Goals. There was an organization called Western Goals. I'm not sure if they're still in existence for Canada. And Wilson Carto and those people. But that tendency is part of the MAGA movement, but they're very anti-Zionist. And I mentioned the other tendency with John Hagee is the right-wing evangelical Christian. So there's a split. So the group now that people like Kirk represented the Christian, he shifted more to the Christian identity position because he started questioning that.
So the question is Israel and United States support for Israel.
That's right.
Right.
So the white Christian nationalists or the Christian identity movement They work closely with the neo-Nazis, and they're very anti-Semitic, as opposed to the evangelical right Christians who completely into the Israel, is this the land it was promised to the Jews?
Is that the camp that Mike Huckabee is in?
Mike Huckabee is in that camp.
Okay.
Yeah. But you know, it's amazing. But that's why we read the scriptures from a liberatory perspective. When you read, you really read it. You know that people like Hagee and all those, the big churches, the big mega churches, and so on, those people preach a gospel that is fraudulent. And as I said, it has no biblical, it cannot be justified from a biblical perspective. It cannot. Isn't the same way how the slave masters twisted and took out of context verses from the Bible or the scriptures to justify the enslavement of Africans. That cannot be from the biblical, from the reading of the scriptures, whether it's in the Old Testament or New Testament, justify that.
Is Joel Osteen anywhere in that?
Joel Osteen is one of these mega preachers who preach this so-called prosperity theology. Right. It's a bogus theology. It's on scripture. There's no, it cannot be, as I said, if you go, I mean, let me give you a simple example of the young leader, the man who said to Jesus that he kept all of the commandments.
Mm-hmm.
Jesus had the power to know whether he was telling a lie or not.
Mm-hmm.
But from the reading of the scriptures, Jesus never doubted the man. But Jesus said this. He said, go get rid of your wealth, take the proceeds, give it to the poor, and come and follow me. That man disappeared. He disappeared because he felt that observation of the law and personal piety was good enough for salvation. But Jesus said, look, come out with me, come and struggle. Faith must be linked with action. It's not just about keeping the law, observing the law, and personal piety.
Mm-hmm.
You have to come out and struggle. Faith must be linked with action. And thought must be a guide also for action. So it was a gospel of struggle, of liberation.
Right.
So Huckabee and Joel Osteen and them, what they do is they preach a bogus theology that focus on the material aspect of life covered, and they try to put on a spiritual cloak to it.
Mm-hmm.
So they say the more you give, the more money you give, the more you will receive. Well, the things of the spirit are of the spirit, and of the flesh are of the flesh, and of the material world. So what they do, they preach a religion that Karl Marx rightfully referred to as an opiate or an opium of the people. That type of religion is dope. That type of religion it teaches you to conform to the existing status quo, not to challenge it. So if you are not doing well in your personal life, whether at the level of your marriage or your work or what, it is because you are not making enough of a big contribution to the church. The more you give financially, the more you will get. This is not what the Gospels teach.
Let me put one more question towards this ceasefire framework.
Yeah.
And I've asked this a number of times, but maybe not quite this way. How do you negotiate with a people who teach their children that you're subhuman and they are sworn to your extermination? And that gets back to my question about talking about this thing as though it started on the 7th of October, ignoring the Nakba in 1948. The objective of the Zionist state, and this is not my opinion, this is what they say, is the extermination of the Palestinians.
Yes.
So I don't understand how you negotiate this. Yeah. Help me out.
You know, the founders of Zionism, most of them, they were very secular, and they were atheists.
Yes.
That's one thing. The other thing is the Western, the conscience, the guilty conscience of the West. If you look, I think we did touch on that some time ago.
Mm-hmm.
The persecution of the Jews in Europe,
mm-hmm.
in Western Europe, both in countries that were dominated by the Roman Catholic, where Roman Catholicism was strong, as well as where the Protestant religion groups were strong. Both. In Britain, in England, the Jews were persecuted.
Mm-hmm.
The Jews, at various periods in English history, kings persecuted the Jews. They were given time, one period, by the time it was, I think it was, what did they call it? The day when you celebrate, you give letters to your loved ones, and so what they call it?
Valentine's Day.
St. Valentine's Day, sir. That's right. And one English king said that the Jews should get out by St. Valentine's Day, or else they would face the consequences. In Catholic Spain, after you had the Moors were defeated, and the two crowns united in Spain to bring about the crowns of Castile and Aragon,
mm-hmm.
together to form a united Spain with King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella, that sponsored Columbus' so-called voyage of discovery. Right. Many Jews, when the Moors were leaving Spain, parts of southern Italy and France, and they were going back to North Africa, the Jews begged the Moors to take them. That is how, if you look at today, you'll see so many Jews, Sephardic Jews, in Morocco.
Yes.
The Jews went back with the Muslims. So there was no hostility here, mm-hmm. really, between the Jews and the Muslims. The Jews knew that they were going to be protected by the Muslims. So getting back to Palestine, what is today Palestine, or the land where the Israelis now occupy, has established the state of Israel. There were the Jews, the Sephardic Jews, and the Palestinian people coexisted peacefully.
Right.
They lived together. And then you had a group of Europeans, the Khazars, people who had no connection whatsoever to the Jews of biblical time, who were European Jews that were part of this Balfour, where the Balfour region, where they brought them and settled them in Palestine as a dagger in the heart of the Arab world. These people, if you go back to the time of the Ottoman Empire, mm-hmm. and Byzantium and so, there were some people who were caught between the Ottomans and the Byzantium Empire, and they opted this. They said, look, it is better we convert to Judaism than to become Eastern Christian or Muslims, although some did.
Mm-hmm.
Some did. But these Khazars, as our Kostler referred to as the 13th tribe, these people were used by the imperial powers as part of a grand program, a grand strategy to be an outpost for the Western imperial powers in that part of the world. And Israel has always serve that purpose. But today, as we can see, Israel calls the shots, and the Israeli lobby and the Israeli influence is strong. You look at AIPAC,
Yeah, AIPAC,
and other Israel, AIPAC, and you'll see how powerful they are. And they destroy. There's a book called They Dare Speak Out. You remember that book?
Yes, I have it.
Yeah, that's right.
I have it.
But yeah, these guys destroy progressive congressmen. They went after a lot of progressive people.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of progressive people they went after.
There's another book. I had that as well. The Israeli Lobby. The Israeli
Lobby. That's right.
Yeah,
it's very powerful. It's a very powerful, and
no, go ahead. I was looking for the book. Go ahead.
Yeah, and something, let me tell you what's happening. On Saturday, there will be a big march in support, in solidarity with Palestine in Georgetown, Guyana. It's going to attract about over 1,000 something persons. We are part of that. And part of the march, the march we're going to march past the British High Commission, the Western embassies, and past the United States Embassy, then for the rally. And we were told by the police that we cannot march past the US Embassy. Now, here's a country that's meant to be sovereign and independent, but we cannot walk past. As a citizen of this country, we cannot walk past the US Embassy. So pressure is being applied to the government, on the government of Guyana. The Israelis are here. There's the Israeli companies doing business with the government, and that's why we're pushing this BDS campaign, this boycott, divest, and sanction Israel. So the pressure is mounting, and there are those who will hold their ground, stand firmly, and others who will buckle, because people know that there are serious repercussions for themselves, their children who are studying abroad, and so on, because they actually ferret you out, And that is what is happening. So I'm saying that even in a place like Guyana, right here, apart from the Americans, the Israelis are very, very active in this part.
Let's switch gears. There are a couple of stories that have come out that I wanted to get your take on what's being reported. And one of the stories is from MSN. Guyana strengthens territorial defense with French military support. During the opening of the French embassy in Guyana, President Irfan Ali said his country was ready to accept France's offer of technological assistance, including land and maritime radar systems, to monitor Venezuela's movements amid pressure over Essequibo region. What's going on here with this story? Guyana strengthens territorial defense with French military support.
Well, the French, we've never had a French embassy. All the years in Guyana, there was never a French embassy. We had there was just an honorary consular who looked after the French. But now, with all the oil, the newly found oil and gas wealth, all these Western countries are flocking to Guyana and opening embassies, including the French. Now, the French, France, we know what the role of the French in what the French did in Libya and what they're doing in the Sahel countries. The French have armed pseudo-Islamic groups to destabilize the progressive regimes of the Sahel. If you listen to some of the leaders and the leadership and some of those who attended the United Nations General Assembly, they made it, representative of those countries said that France colluded and is working hand in hand with those groups to destabilize their region. Now, we know the history of France. France has colonies, French Guyana. There's an independence movement there, fighting for independence. Guadeloupe, there's a strong independence movement in Guadeloupe and in Martinique, in Reunion in the Pacific, Caledonia, those places. So how can an oppressor, how can a colonizer, one who is a colonizer, an imperial power, come to assist another country by saying, hey, we're here to help you defend your freedom? It just doesn't make sense. France is here to get in. The French oil companies are trying to get into Guyana. And that is what France does, the whole purpose about opening the embassy. And they will provide what they call the necessary technology and so for aerial surveillance and all of that against Venezuela. But we need to, and the president of Guyana is I would refer to as a nominal Muslim. Good. He gets up at the United Nations and says that what is going on in Gaza must come to an end. But then there's a trade-off for that. You see, you can get up and say that, but then at home, you're allowing our country to be used as an outpost by imperialism in its war of aggression against Venezuela. And France and the US are part of that destabilizing force in the Sahel countries to remove Ibrahim Traore in Burkina Faso, as well as the other progressive and revolutionary-oriented leaders in the Sahel. So France is not committed to the defense of Guyana's sovereignty and our independence. France, like the United States, is trampling on our dignity and independence. And as revolutionary Pan-Africanists and anti-imperialists, we are opposed to the French presence in Guyana, in the same way that we are opposed to the American presence. War with Venezuela would be good for none of us in the region.
Is this move by France in response to Niger kicking them out, and they're now seeking alternatives to the energy supply that they can't get out of Niger, or was this going to happen anyway?
That's right. France had no interest whatsoever in Guyana.
We got to connect. We got to connect these dots.
Yeah, and you're doing that. You're doing an excellent job, because they were kicked out, and now Guyana has opened up to everyone. Every Tom, Dick, and Harry, every Western company is just pouring into this country. Let me tell you what happened many years ago. There was a gold company by the name of a mining company involved in the gold industry mining of gold called Omai. And they operated in Guyana for 10 years. And then they left. And they say, well, they were not making a profit. So maybe they were running a charity. But after years, they've returned. They've returned to Guyana. And now they're boasting that they're exporting thousands and thousands of ounces of gold. So our strategic resources are being plundered by foreign companies, while the cost of living has skyrocketed. Workers, fast food workers, pump attendants at gas stations, security guards, and others, they actually live on starvation wages. We are getting 2% royalty while Exxon carries away everything. And yet they call this development. This is we call it plunder. We call it plunder by invitation. So France, as you rightly pointed out, France is here to get into the energy sector. That is what it's all about. The French presence in Guyana, and you'll see French oil companies going to get blocks in the offshore blocks, because we have a number of blocks still to be allocated.
The other story, Ethiopia claims Eritrea is readying to, quote, wage war, end quote. Ethiopia has accused Eritrea's government of working with an opposition group based in Ethiopia's northern Tigray region to prepare for a military offensive, underscoring concerns of renewed conflict in the region. What do you see as being behind this story?
I don't believe that. I don't believe it. I'm very wary of the opportunistic position of successive Ethiopian regimes. I was going through the book by Isaias Afwerki, the president of Eritrea. It's My Struggle for Eritrea and Africa.
Mm-hmm.
And he pointed out how 9 people of 9 different groups, ethnic groups, and of various religious confessions are living peacefully, and the advances that have been made, and why the Western imperialists want to destroy Eritrea. You know, they call Eritrea the North Korea of Africa. But I have never been there. I've been in touch with some comrades, friends who've been there. And he said it's a remarkable achievement what they've done in terms of the whole thing about self-reliance and what they're doing.
Sounds like Burkina Faso.
Yes, yes. But this, you know, the Tigray People's Liberation Front was part of the Ethiopian People's Revolutionary Democratic Front that had governed Ethiopia. And they were the dominant group. And there was a split. And in that split, the groups that were led by the dominant, the Amara and the Oromo people, pushed the Tigrayans out of it. And you had that conflict. Now, we know that if you go back and you look at Ethiopia, we know that Ethiopia was not colonized, but Menelik II, around, I think it was around 1889, Menelik II, when he expanded the Ethiopian empire, was able to bring Eritrea and all of those places under the control of the dominant Amara group. And when Emperor Selassie was overthrown by the military, and then you had the Derg that received Soviet, you had the Long War, the Ogaden War, remember? Ethiopia and Somalia under Siad Barre, and so on. But what happened was this. You had the Eritrean, this President Afwerki had received military training in China, and he was the leader of the Eritrean Liberation Front, one of the leaders that were fighting this war for Eritrean independence. So when Selassie was overthrown, Emperor Selassie was overthrown, then the Eritreans said, well, okay, we can talk to the military now and, you know, settle the issue, the national question of self-determination for Eritrea. But that did not happen. They embarked on a war that went, I think, for how many years? 15 years almost. And the then Soviet Union backed the Ethiopian military. And the Ethiopian military received assistance from Cuba. And I want to say this because I think we're truth warriors. And we have an obligation to speak the truth and don't indulge in intellectual dishonesty. I always say to my Cuban brothers, I honestly believe it was a mistake that the Cubans made when they provided assistance to Eritrea in the struggle to Ethiopia in the struggle against Eritrea. That was a mistake. But it happened. These things happen. But I do not believe that, because remember, Eritrea teamed up with Abiy in the present, their prime minister, teamed up with Ethiopia to fight the Tigray People's Liberation Front. And it is well established that the Tigray People's Liberation Front, they've lost their direction a long time. They were getting assistance from the United States and playing a role to break up, to balkanize Ethiopia.
Mm-hmm.
I cannot see, I think they're just throwing that out because I said I'm suspicious of various Ethiopian regimes. Look at what the role Ethiopia played a role. They were a willing agent of the United States when they went into Somalia to dislodge the Islamic courts and the military wing Al-Shabaab. And they went into Ethiopia on behalf of the Western powers. And Al-Shabaab waged a war against Ethiopia, hit and run, as well as Kenyan forces. You remember Kenyan forces went into Somalia too.
Mm-hmm.
And the Al-Shabaab start carrying out cross-border attacks in Kenya itself. And the Kenyans pulled out, and Ethiopia pulled out. So Ethiopia, the role that Ethiopia has been playing has not been a very consistent one. And I think that this, where they're saying that Eritrea is supporting this group, I think is a way of getting Western assistance to go after Eritrea. Because remember too, Eritrea's control of the port. It's landlocked and
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
yeah. So.
This one I find interesting. This is from the Latin Times. House Democrats criticize Trump and Rubio for, quote, pushing for regime change in Venezuela. The American people don't want, see, you're laughing already, don't want another war. Democrats in the House Foreign Affairs Committee criticized Trump and Rubio for pushing for regime change in Venezuela. The American people don't want another war, and Congress can't let any president start one illegally or unilaterally. That's not how the Constitution works. Well, where were all of these Democrats during the Biden administration when the Biden administration claimed the Venezuelan embassy?
That's right.
And tried to impose Juan Guaido on the Venezuelan
Their
people.
face hypocrisy. It's amazing. And they have the gall to actually come out and say it. You know, the Democrats, they recognize Juan Guaido. They supported the opposition. They peddled the lie that Maduro is a dictator and that he rigged the elections. I was invited twice to go as an observer, but I didn't get to make it, hopefully not at time. But I spoke to observers, brothers and sisters from Africa, all over. Africa, South America, Central America, the United States, who went there from the Caribbean.
Yes.
You had like about 300 to 400 observers. They went to polling stations. They spoke with the people, the All African People's Revolutionary Party, Black Alliance for Peace.
I spoke with a number of them as well.
Yeah, yes. And when you listen to what these people are telling you, then you know the lies of the mainstream Western media. Kwame Ture always, you know, I mentioned this. Kwame Ture said imperialism don't lie sometimes. They lie all the time. It lies all the time. So when you listen to the Democrats, the friendly face of fascism, condemning the naked face of fascism, two faces of the same coin.
Who started the war in Ukraine?
Exactly.
Joe Biden.
Who started the war in Ukraine?
Nancy Pelosi went to Taiwan to try to antagonize China so that the United States would then say that they were justified in attacking China.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. Who's back? And the picture on this article is Gregory Meeks.
Yeah.
Gregory Meeks is his picture is on the face, is on the cover of this article.
Yeah.
And he's backing genocide in Gaza.
Yeah. Yes. And there is another one who came down to Guyana. He's a congressman.
Yeah, you're talking about he's the minority, the Democratic minority leader.
Yeah, that's right. Hakeem Jeffries.
Hakeem Jeffries. And he went with Kamala Harris.
Yeah. Well, some I said on a program, I sorry I didn't run into Mr. Jeffries. He stood up and welcomed the mass murderer, the genocider, Netanyahu. These guys are just downright hypocrites. It's barefaced hypocrisy. And if you are not sane, and you will start to question yourself, are you hearing right?
Emily Schrader, Russia started the war in Ukraine. Emily, let me just respectfully suggest you turn off MSNBC, turn off CNN, and do some reading of history, and you will find that statement is not true.
Correct.
Okay. All right.
Brother, I just want to point this out quickly. Yes. A few days ago, on October the 6th, we commemorated the anniversary of the Cubana bombing, 1976. It's important for Americans to know this. That plane departed Georgetown, and when it got to Trinidad, a bomb was placed on it.
Mm-hmm.
The men who planted that bomb, the plane got off in Barbados, and they left. They checked in at a particular hotel. The name of the hotel is provided. The name of the hotel is listed. Ralph Gonzalez read out the entire thing at a conference at the University of West Indies Cave Hill campus. The moment they got into that hotel, they made a call to the U.S. Embassy. They went to the United States Embassy, had a meeting, left the embassy, went back to the hotel, checked out and went to another hotel in southern Barbados, and left in the evening. That plane exploded off the coast of Barbados, killing everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Cubans died. The entire Cuban fencing team was killed.
Mm-hmm.
11 Guyanese were killed. And I think 4 North Korean diplomats who were based in Guyana. The mastermind of that dastardly, of that terrorist act, Guyana tried to get them extradited. Cuba did the same. North Korea protested, and they were protected by the Americans. They were protected. Bosch, Orlando Bosch,
yes,
and Carilas Posadas, they were protected. One of the masterminds who bombed that plane was placed in a Venezuela maximum security prison, and less than 2 months or 3 months, he escaped. Of course, his escape was facilitated by American intelligence agencies with the then Venezuelan government.
Mm-hmm.
And that was our first 9/11, as we like to say. And do you know that commemoration now, it's a low-key event, because none of the politicians, including our misleaders, want to get up and point at the elephant in the room and say that U.S. imperialism is responsible for that act of terrorism. This is what they do. And they supported, in reply, what you said to the lady who made that comment.
Mm-hmm.
They armed neo-Nazi groups. There is a group called the Black International because of the uniform they wear. Mm-hmm. That was founded by Klaus Barbie and other Nazis who the Americans helped to escape after Hitler's collapse.
Mm-hmm.
Every South American country, there's a neo-Nazi formation. Mm-hmm. And there is a group within Bolsonaro's party, Liberal Party. These people recruited neo-Nazis from all over, including Colombia, to go to fight in Ukraine against Russia. And Russia captured many of them. Mm-hmm. There was one where a Colombian soldier was telling the others not to come, mm-hmm. that they're misled, they're not being given the amount and all of that. And there are neo-Nazi groups from Britain, from Norway, Sweden, Denmark, and all across who have volunteers in. They're part of the Azov battalion in the Ukraine. Mm-hmm. Because the Ukrainians are taking a licking. they're doing like what the British do during the time of Admiral Nelson, press gang, go to the streets and capture young people and put them on ships to go to fight naval battles. And that's what they're doing to the young people, you know. And that's not happening in Russia. Russia, they have volunteers, people are volunteering, they're fine. So they are really not in a nice position. And you know, as you pointed out earlier, Putin said to them, Russia could not throw back and allow NATO to expand and put bases all around Russia. And Putin and Russia was supposed to just relax and allow the Western nations, NATO, to encircle them. That is not going to happen. And that was a special military operation in defense of Russia.
Emily, again, you need to do a little more reading because you're way, way, way off on that one.
And last but not least,
go ahead.
Ukrainian military, Ukrainian intelligence are working hand in hand with some of these pseudo jihadists that were moved from Syria that are now in the Sahel, destabilizing the Sahel countries to overthrow Ibrahim Traore. Ukraine admitted it, that they've provided, that's their way of getting back at Russia, that is providing, intelligence, military, logistics.
And arms.
Yes, and arms.
It has been proven that there are shipments of weapons that have been diverted from Ukraine to the Sahel.
That's right.
Emily, do some homework, please.
In fact, one so-called jihadist was boasting that they were able to ambush a military column and killed a number, I think over 100 and something soldiers were killed. They said that it was with the assistance that they got from the Ukrainians, and the Ukrainians went on and bragged and boasted about it.
Yep. Gerald Perreira, as always, my brother. Thank you. You gave us time that we didn't have with you on Tuesday because of the power outage, and so really appreciate you. Really appreciate you joining us.
Yeah, anytime, brother.
Thanks, man.
Keep up the work, and as I said, what you are doing is sacred work.
You are too kind. I greatly appreciate that. Thank
all
you.
The best.
All right, same to you as well. All right, folks. I got to thank Gerald again for joining me today. Thank you all so much for listening to the Connecting the Dots podcast with me. Got to figure out a guest for tomorrow, and I was a little remiss on that one. So tune in tomorrow. We'll figure it out. Please follow, subscribe, leave a review, share the show. Follow us on social media. All the links are below in the show description. And remember, this is where the analysis of politics, culture, and history converge. Talk without analysis is just chatter, and we don't chatter here on Connecting the Dots. See y'all tomorrow. Until then, I am Dr. Wilmer Leon. Have a blessed remainder of your day. Peace. I'm out.
Connecting the Dots with Dr. Wilmer Leon, where the analysis of politics, culture, and history converge.